Perspective, Senator Rob Portman from Ohio. Welcome back. Good to see you, Senator.
Gerri, thanks for having me on again.
All right. Well, you ran the Office of Management and Budget, as I understand. What would you be doing today if you were still in that job to fix the situation?
I'd be finding spending cuts. I mean, one of the things that is interesting is if you look at the cuts that have been proposed by the Gang of Six, by the Biden group, by the president's discussion, by the president's own fiscal commission, they add up to $2.8 trillion in cuts. And none of these, by the way, are the more sensitive structural changes in the entitlement program.
Right.
So the cuts are out there, Gerri. You know it. We've all been talking about it. And, so what I'd be doing is I'd be compiling a list of those and saying, gee, gang, of course we need to extend the debt limit. We need to do that because if we don't, we are risking default over time. It wouldn't happen right away, but it's a situation that would hurt the economy. But while we're doing it, we have to deal with the underlying problem. And this is what Standard & Poor's and Moody's and Fitch and all the other credit agencies have been saying. Yes, of course, they don't want us to default. I don't think anybody does, I hope, and I don't believe we will. But they're also saying if you don't deal with your underlying fiscal problem, which is the overspending, you're still going to risk having a downgrade and having the economic problems that come from that. So that's what I'd be doing. And I think the administration, working with Leader Reid, has now realized, I hope, that we're not going to be imposing new taxes on the economy. We ought to be reforming the tax code, of course, to make it more efficient. And we can do that through this committee process. But at the same time, we've got to get the spending cuts in place.
Well,
if we don't, we will have missed a huge opportunity.
To that point, Speaker Boehner has been going after these spending cuts for some time, but it seems that he's finding it difficult to get all the support he needs in the House. Shocking to me, but I think it's true. Are Senate Republicans as divided as the House?
I don't know because we don't have the details yet. We don't know exactly what the proposals are going to be. But I, for one, am supporting getting the cuts in the House, getting the Boehner proposal through the House. It will help us, frankly, in terms of negotiating something that makes sense for the American people in the Senate. If we don't have success in the House getting these cuts in place, and by the way, when you add up the cuts that Speaker Boehner is talking about, it's about $2.7 trillion versus about $1 trillion in the proposal that the Senate Majority Leader is proposing. And by the way, I commend Harry Reid for taking tax increases off the table. I think that was very constructive. But frankly, the Boehner proposal has a lot more cuts. Senator, when you look at his savings,
a lot of his savings, they're made up. I mean, it's games
that's why I say it's a trillion, not 2.7 trillion. So I'm discounting all of those so-called blue smoke and mirror savings that come from saying we're not going to spend money. Everybody knows we're not going to spend anyway in Iraq and Afghanistan, and actually also taking the new CBO score, using the correct baseline for the discretionary spending. So you get from 2.7, which was claimed yesterday, down to closer to $1 trillion. And my point is that John Boehner has more savings than that, and that's really the fundamental distinction, because both of them have a committee process to look at the tax reform, longer-term structural problems in our entitlements, and both of them rely on spending cuts.
Sir, quickly, we don't have much time. Are you going to make the August 2nd deadline?
I believe that we can, because as I said a second ago, we're not that far apart, but we got to be sure that we have credible and meaningful reductions in spending as part of this. Everyone should agree to that. The president certainly should sign such legislation, and I'm hopeful we can come up with that even here in the next few days.
Well, Senator Portman, thanks for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gerri. Great to be on you again.
All right, a shocking new poll says a whopping 85% of voters